So in this video, I'll be talking about how to create outline buttons. Now, this is what I mean by outline buttons, and I'll show you what the code would look like in our browser. So these 5 are all outline buttons, and I've included a default button besides them just to show you the difference between them. Now, what happens when I put my mouse over this button is, see, changes colors. Changes colors, changes colors, changes colors, changes colors. Now, it's not just the background that changes colors, though. The font, if you noticed, also changes to white. So now think, from our default button design, how do we change our individual buttons to this design? Think about it. What do we need to change about a default design? Well, first of all, the default text that button comes with is black. We need to change that. Next, inside the word here and to the top, right, bottom, and left, there is space, and we need to give each of these buttons spacing between that. And we use paddings to do that. We also need to give these buttons a round edge, so we use border radius to give this kind of a round edge. Otherwise, if you don't do that, it becomes sort of a rectangle. Our edges look sharp. We don't want that in our design. And lastly, when I put my mouse over this, see, by default, with our default button, no change. But what we want is for the mouse cursor to become a pointed hand when I put the cursor over each button. So let's go back to our code. So let me show you how to design what we just designed previously. So let's create 6 buttons. Now I've just included a 6th button just to show you the comparison of outline buttons versus the default design. So we won't actually style the last button. So the first one, let's add text of green. Let's add in the second one text blue, and let's add in the third one orange. Let's add in the 4th one red. Let's write the 5th one gray, and let's write default in our last one. This default we don't style. So since all these buttons, they share some kind of CSS properties by default, so let's give all these default properties a class. We'll call it button btn, and put them all together. So first of all, since we want to give the buttons round corners, let's give it a border radius property and 6 pixels. Then what we want to do is we want to set it so that when you move the mouse cursor over the buttons, the mouse becomes a pointed hand. So let's set the cursor value to pointer. And next, what we want to do is give the font size bigger number. We want the font size to be bigger, so let's set the font size to 16 pixels. And lastly, what we want to do is to set some padding values, so there's more space between the word in the middle and the top, right, bottom, left corners. So set padding to 16 pixels and 32 pixels. So now that we've set all the general properties, let's set the individual properties for each of the buttons. So give this button class to everybody. So let's set the specific properties for the first button, the one with text green. So let's give it a class of green. And just as a reminder, right, what we want this outline button to do is the following. We want, when we hover over it, the background to change colors. We want the border to change colors, and we want the font color to change colors, right? First of all, we want to reset the border color, right? We want green border around the button. So let's set that in. So set the value border to 2 pixels, solid, and the color, I'll give it as a green color. So 1ED837. And let's set the text color to the same green color, same color. And just a reminder, we want the following changes when we hover over green. We want the border to change, say 2 pixels solid, but a darker shade of green. So 159D28 is a darker shade of green. This background color is the same as the border color. And lastly, we want the font color be white. So the code for white is FFFF. And for the remaining outline buttons, the idea is pretty much the same. I'll just go over them, but it's really the same idea. So for blue, let's do the same thing, but for the blue color. So let's give it a class of blue. So we want to set blue classes borders to 2 pixels solid, and let's pick a blue color. Let's say 6699FF. This is a blue color. We want to give it a font color of the same blue. So next we do the same thing. So when you hover over blue, you get the following. The background color changes to a darker shade of blue, 004DE6. So the border, right? Let's set it to 2 pixels solid, 004DE6. And lastly, for the color, the font, we always set it to white for outline borders here. So set it to white. So anyways, let me just show you what these two look like in the browser right now. So moving on, let's do the same thing with the orange button. So give it a class of orange. For orange, let's set the border to an orange color. 2 pixels, solid, FFB833. This is a orange color. Let's set the color to the same orange shade. Then we want to set the change that happens when you hover over the orange button. So for orange, we want to change the background color to a darker orange shade. So the shade we will be using is A500. Let's set the border likewise. Same color, 2 pixels solid, FFA500. Let's set the font color to white. Next, we do the basically exact same thing to red, except for the colors. This is really the same thing. So create a class of reds, and the border we will set to solid, FF5C33. Let's give it a color that is the same, FF5C33. So when you hover over the button, you want a darker shade of red. So background color, let's set it to a darker shade of red, which we get, let's say E62E00. So for the border, let's give it 2 pixels solid and E62E00. Same color. The color of the font, let's set it to white. And finally, we really repeat pretty much the same thing with gray. This will be short. So I'll set the border to 2 pixels solid, B3. By now you probably guessed it's just a gray color. Same font color will be the same. B3. And again, same thing. Set a darker shade of gray. So the background color will set to 808080. So for the footer, we'll set to 2 pixels solid and same color. And lastly, for hover, let's set the font again to white. So anyways, let's see what this looks like in our browser. See, there you have it. Nice outline buttons that change color when you hover over them. Anyways, just about finishes this video. Thanks for tuning in. If you have any questions, please feel free to let me know, and I'll see you next time.